Hey, what's up, podcast? It's Jeff. Just want to jump in here. This is a special bonus episode of Teach Better Talk. This is actually going to be the audio recording from a Facebook Live that our team is doing every single day, Monday through Friday, at 8 a.m. Eastern Time in our Facebook private group. You can get in that group at teachbettergroup.com or go on to Facebook and just search Teach Better Team. You'll see our page and then you'll see the group. Get in there. So here we go, a special bonus episode of Teach Better Talk pulled from one of our Facebook Live videos in our private group at teachbettergroup.com. Hope you enjoy. Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday. It is the 21st of May. And we are live. My name's Jeff from the Teach Better team. Awesome to be here. I've got Sean Peck with me all the way from over in beautiful Minnesota. And I can say that, like I mean that because I was there in December and it was cold, but it's beautiful. I really, really like, I was in Minneapolis, which I really liked. The city was beautiful. It was cold, but it was nice. So super pumped to have you on here and chatting. And excited to have all you here watching stuff. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe. Hit that like button, leave us a comment, let us know what's going on. If you're on Twitter, make sure that you're also following Sean to connect with him. If you're on Twitch, I said this last night, do me a favor, let me know how to use Twitch. We're still figuring it out right now. And if you're here in Facebook, obviously say good morning as well. We are on the Facebook page, in the Facebook group, on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Twitch right now, going crazy with Sean. So Adam, good to see you. Good morning. Good morning, Andrea. Good to see you. Good morning to you too, Sean. I just haven't even said that.
Good morning.
It was good morning. Good chat. We were chatting before we went live, so I feel like I already did that, but I haven't done that for a while. So you are in Minnesota. So are you Central Time or you're Central?
Central
right?
Time. Yeah.
So you're just 1 hour back, so it's not too crazy as far as that. Good morning, Libby. Libby from Cleveland. Cleveland in the house. Good to see you. So Sean, for those that don't know you, aren't familiar with you, can you give us the rundown of who you are, what your role in education is, maybe a little bit of how you got there and what you're doing right now? Before you do that, though, good morning to Joe. Morning, Chad. Chad's here. But yeah, so share us, who is Sean Peck? Who are you? What do you do in education, man?
Well, I appreciate that, man. Super excited to be here. Teaching is the most important and honestly one of the hardest jobs to do well in the world. And so first of all, shout out to you and your team for all the value that you're adding, the content that you're putting out there to support teachers. It's really a blessing that we have folks like you out there that are supporting the work that we do.
Making me blush over here, man.
Well, you do good work, and so you deserve your shout out. So, you mentioned I'm Sean Peck. I'm an assistant principal from Southeastern Minnesota High School over there. Been doing that for a few years. You mentioned springtime in Minnesota. We got to deal with a lot from about October to now, and we get about 2 or 3 really good weeks where the weather's nice and we all get outside before summer hits. So, that's what we got going on. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Good morning to Carrie. Morning, Dave Schmitto. Good morning, Lauren. Holly, awesome to see you. Megan. Chad says, "Whoa, day made." He was talking about your comment there, which is awesome. So we had it's not counterpart, your partner, right? I guess your partner in crime.
Yeah.
Joe Sage. We met. Ray and I ran into him in one of your teachers. I can't remember her name. I feel horrible right now.
I think it was Elizabeth Daniels, maybe.
Yeah, I think it was Elizabeth. Yeah, we ran into them out in at Impact in Minnesota back in December, which we were just talking about. Feels like forever ago. And then we had Joe on the podcast, which was awesome. You were one of the 3 people that he suggested that we all follow on Twitter. And then he was like, "You guys got to have him on the podcast," which we just realized we hadn't done but I just sent you the link, so we're making it happen. But let's get him on the morning drop-in as well. So you and Joe are both, you guys work together at this school. Can you kind of paint that picture of what does that role look like when you guys are working together? And then I'd really like to know, then also right into what does it look like now? How has that changed now with COVID and everything?
Yeah. So we basically do the exact same job. we split the alphabet up, and technically he's responsible for some extra responsibilities, grades 9 and 10, and then I'm responsible for a couple extra responsibilities, grades 11 and 12. But if you were to walk into the building on any given day, we're just doing the exact same thing. And what you would see is, we're where the buzz is. At least I guess I'll speak for myself. I go to where the action is. In the morning, I like to get there early before the buzz starts, so that when it happens, I can be out of the office, where the kids are at. So one of the great things that we did this year is we really wanted to create an atmosphere at the high school where right when you walked in, you felt good. Kind of that first impression. We believe pretty strongly that how you feel really impacts how you perform and how you act and all that. So, setting the stage right from the first moment. So we put greeters at all the doors. Our teachers are doing morning supervision. Well, we changed that word to morning greeting.
I like it.
So right when kids would walk through the door, pre-COVID, they're getting a fist bump, they're getting a high five, they're getting called by their first name, they're getting, told, we're so glad that you're here. We opened up the gym so that kids could come in and shoot baskets, which was usually where I was, breaking down kids one-on-one, showing them who was in charge and stuff like that. Music playing in the hallways, and just trying to create this atmosphere where school is just a great place to be, so that when the bell rings and you got to run off the first hour, you've already kind of, had a great start to your day. You've gotten some breakfast. Our goal is always to have each kid have 3 positive interactions with an adult. One always at the door of the classroom right before they walk in, but you still got 2 more to go. So if you see a student in the hallway, if you see a student in the lunch line, it's our expectation that you're calling that student by name and that you're making sure that they have a great experience. And sometimes that's what leadership looks like, is just making sure that people are seen, that people are heard, that they feel valued. And that's really, our mindset is we want to see people. We want to see teachers. We want to see kids. We want to see the parents that are sitting in front of us. And so, that's really what our focus is.
I love, and I know right now, obviously it's been effective. It's different, but I love and our good friend Don Epps does this at his middle school as well. Is I love the idea of the first thing the kids get an opportunity to do is go shoot hoops. Or stuff like that. So Don they've got like this whole media room where the kids can come in, and there's video games. They can go in the gym. They can do all these things, and that's like the first 30 to 45 minutes of their day every day. And you're talking about the first 30 minutes, whatever, of my day as a student coming to your high school, I have an opportunity to go play one-on-one with the principal, right, or shoot hoops with my buddies, or relax, whatever. So it becomes this place that I enjoy going to every morning. Versus as soon as I walk in the door, oh man, I got to get to study and I got to worry about this. Instead, it's something that I can look forward to, which is going to set me up to better receive all the rest of that stuff the rest of the day, which I think is such an important part. And I hope we start seeing more and more of that by people that lead in that way and stuff. So hopefully we can get back to that sooner than later, and you can get back to that culture there. So let me ask you that. Well, first off, Alex, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. Andrea says she loves that positive culture. As soon as the day starts. Cheryl, good to see you this morning. She says, love the music in the hallway. I play music when my students log in and for remote learning. Well, I love that. Not letting it stop you. Andrea said a lot of times in high school, those types of personal connections fall to the wayside. I love how you're promoting that. And then good morning, Lindsay. Good morning, Lindsay says good morning there. So let me ask you that now. So obviously school closures and stuff really affects that part. I mean, because you can't shoot hoops with kids, right? You don't have control window coming in. How are you guys adjusting to, or how have you adjusted to everything now? And have you found, are you able to still promote that same culture? What are the things that you're doing right now? Like, how's that working out now during remote learning, especially as we're getting closer to the end of the year?
Yeah, it's been, for everybody, I'm sure, watching, a major challenge. We believe so deeply in connection and seeing people, like I was just talking about, and now you don't see people. And so how do you kind of go through what your core beliefs are about what education should look like and feel like and sound like when you're not actually entering into the same space? And so we try to be as intentional as we can with it. We're still doing our weekly student shout outs, which we would do every week anyway over the loudspeaker. Teachers would recognize the accomplishments of kids, and then we would shout that kid out over the loudspeaker. We still do those virtually.
How are you doing those virtually? What are you using?
I just collect them, make a video, and put it up on our school's Facebook page
nice.
and our Schoology page, so kids can click on it. It's not pushed into classrooms or anything like that, like the morning announcements would be.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's a lot of students opting out of actually going through and watching it. But
but the ones that cared about it, that it meant something to, are going to find it now, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously there's some kids that didn't care when it was going on in the hall either, but the ones that do, right? So is that you? Are you making those videos, or individual teachers, or?
Yeah, I do it. So each week, and again, it's just a little thing we can do to show people that we see them. Yeah. We send out a link and we call it. So we're the Falcons is our mascot.
Okay.
And I don't want to offend anybody here, but we call it "We Are Falcon Awesome" is our little title that we use for it. And we just open it up, shout somebody out, affirm somebody who's doing something great. Who brought you a coffee, who helped you with some little job. And each week I send out a bulletin to teachers, and there's dozens of these shout outs every single week. And what it really does is it's become ingrained in what we do every day. And so people go through their day now looking to recognize those little things that people are doing. They're hyper aware of the things that kids are doing that are setting them apart from the norm, so that they can remember on Thursday when that link comes out, oh, that's right, I have to make sure they get a shout out for that.
Which is such a mindset change from always looking to correct or criticize or peg them on the thing they're doing wrong. Now instead I'm hyper focused on this positive, which is going to allow me to see the positive of that kid that might be a bad kid, right? I'm going to focus on
exactly.
Also, and I know you're about to say, I didn't want to interrupt you, but also I love, that's where I was going, but a positive I want to make sure everyone's listening to and hearing there in this world of COVID and closure now is that's usually done on the loudspeaker, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now it's done on video. Now the parents can also see that.
Right.
I'll tell you what, man, and as a parent, hearing your kid get shout out, I don't care what it's for. If it's like, hey, good job, Jonathan brought a pencil today, like that's cool. Like my kid just got shouted out. Like, so there is a positive to that. And I don't know. Did you do videos before too, or was it just on?
So no, it's a whole. Right.
So we go back. So maybe now it's both, right? And now it's so there's these little positives that I love that a lot of people are grabbing and seeing from this horrible, tough situation. There are little positives you can grab out of it. And I think that's a potential one there. And that's really cool. So I'm sorry, go ahead. So what else are you doing now with the shift? Where are things at? I love that. I love the student shout outs. It's really cool. And so does everyone in the comments, it appears too. So
good. And hopefully everybody can just, grab one or two things from what we're talking about here today and use it at your own sites to benefit kids. I think that's what we're all just seeking, is to borrow ideas. Another suggestion I would have, and it's really hard to connect, but I'm an assistant principal. Everybody understands that a big part of what I do is discipline in the building and correcting behavior and teaching positive behaviors. I mean, that's what would occupy 75% of my time before, right? These conversations with kids all day long, redirecting and intervening in their life so that they can, be successful in school. Well, I've grown to really love those kids. We've spent a lot of time together. I do have my regulars that come to my office or that I see in the halls or are, maybe skipping some class, and I have to have multiple interactions with them a day. And, it's so funny, you chase some of these kids around the building and they're frustrating. But then when they're not there, it's like, dang, I really miss that student. Yeah. I miss those interactions because you can just see the goodness in every single kid. Even the ones that are trying to get attention in maybe a negative way. And so one of the better things that I've really tried to do is just send them a message through Schoology and say, hey, click this link at 1:00 and just hop online with me on a Google Hangout for 5 or 10 minutes. Just want to see how you're doing. And just ask them, how you holding up? Is there anything you need? And I'll tell you what, more than once, often, the first response is, I thought I was in trouble.
Yeah.
I thought
what you did was yell at people, right?
Yeah, exactly. But then when you have a chance to kind of reset that relationship, to reset that narrative, so because sooner or later they are going to come back in the building and they're going to see me and I'm going to see them. And what does that interaction look like after we haven't seen each other? Yeah. Well, if we've done the work, virtually online, and we've had a conversation that's not about school and it's not about any correcting of behavior or anything like that. It's just, I genuinely care about you. And I just wanted to check in and see how you and your family are doing. I want to be able to do anything that you need me to. You need me to talk to teachers. Yeah. You need me to reach out to a counselor. Can I help your parents at all? Do you have enough food in the home? Like whatever it is, I'm just here for you. And then end the call. That's it. And so if there's anybody out there that's watching, that's like, man, I really, kind of feel that way where I miss some of those kids, I would really suggest just doing that because it's been super impactful for me.
Very cool. I love that. Andrea says she uses a Padlet board for digital student shoutouts. Adam's giving props for how awesome and bold hashtag We Are Falcon Awesome is. So Cheryl's asking, how do you deal with the naysayers if you don't have school spirit? How are you? Yeah, I guess that's a good question. So how do you deal with that? Maybe people who aren't engaging, or people who just aren't a huge fan of your of being in school and don't have that school spirit, and maybe don't like that hashtag because they figure out the fucking awesome. I don't know. Like, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with people who have a negative outlook of your school? Normally, but also now, obviously, in this new world that we're in too.
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and I think the answer is it kind of depends. If they're just not, so I'm an energetic guy. You mentioned Joe Sage, the other assistant principal. We are the rah, get in the hallways, high five kids, high energy all the time. I'm sure we wear people out. I'm sure we exhaust people. I'm sure we get more than a few eye rolls when people say, why on earth are you so excited to be, doing this at 7:30 in the morning or whatever it is? I'm certain of that. And if that's the case, that doesn't really have an impact on me. I don't think that that's a behavior that really needs to be corrected necessarily. I'm a firm believer that you publicly and repeatedly highlight the behaviors that you want to see from students. You do the same thing with the grown-ups, right? Mm-hmm. If there's somebody doing something amazing that you wish that everybody did, you call it out, you name it, you praise it so that everybody knows like, oh, this is what they like. If there's somebody who's not doing what you want them to be doing and what they're doing is kind of unacceptable, and I wouldn't consider to be, somebody who's not, fully engaged in like school spirit or something like that. If that's not your thing, that's okay. But if you're actively disengaged, if you're trying to like disrupt what we're doing, if you're actually like trying to make things worse, well, then that's going to require a very firm and direct conversation, usually privately. I'm not in the business of calling people out publicly or anything like that. But, I'll just speak my truth. When I was a school teacher for 12 years, I taught social studies and AVID at the high school level. And when I thought about going into leadership and administration, confrontation was like the one thing that I was like, oh boy, like, I don't know if I have that in me to confront adults. Like that's not my thing, and you just kind of, after you do it a few times, you realize that things are made better when you confront people and you talk it through. What happens when you ignore it or when you let it fester is resentment grows and things like that. So I think that's been one of the big things that I've learned is pulling someone aside and saying, listen, I love you, I respect you, but I have noticed this thing and that's not really what we do here. And I'm willing to help you through that, but we got to get through this.
Yeah.
And almost every time that I've done that, things have improved. Rarely have I ever, had that happen where I had to call something out or address a behavior and had it actually get work as long as you handle it in a respectful way.
Yeah, I like that approach. Good morning to Jeff. Brian, good to see you jumping in. Cheryl's asking, what if admin is not on board with some of these initiatives and these ideas to engage students? How do you get admin's attention that these initiatives benefit students? So as an admin, I guess from that angle, your angle would be a great angle to answer that from. Like, how do you do that as a teacher if you have an idea, if you're trying to do things, or as an admin and you're trying to get the other admins on board? Like, how do you work that in? Especially something that maybe they might think, oh, that's a little silly or a little over the top or not my style. Like, how do you get them on board or find a way for them to also be at that same level of trying to create that spirit?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think everybody's experience is a little bit different. You're going to have some administrators that are just all in with what their teachers are saying, and you're going to have others that are a little bit more slow to take that and do what they want them to do. So you got to know your own situation. But a couple general things. People in administration love data. And if you have some data to show that what you're suggesting is actually working somewhere else or is bound to work, if you can tie it to some research, if you can make an argument that's just, so first of all, one of my favorite lines in the English language is, I have an idea. When somebody comes to you and says, I have an idea, man, I get excited when that happens because it means we're thinking about how we can make things better. And I'm all ears. I want to hear that. And honestly, I hear some bad ideas, and I have to say, well, let's think this one through a little bit. Or I think that we need to rework this idea before we implement it. But if you're coming to your leadership and you're saying, I have an idea, and it's just an idea, and you're going to like lay it at their footsteps, for them to do the work and for them to do the research, you might not get what you're looking for. We're busy, administrators are busy, teachers are, everybody's busy. And so if you feel strongly that you have an idea that's going to work and you want to do it for the betterment of your students, I really encourage you to do the work yourself, or squat up and get a team of people to do the work, so that when you present it, you can make a firm argument. You've got it worked out, so that that principal in their mind isn't thinking, oh my gosh, I just don't have time to take this on. This sounds like a huge implementation. Because oftentimes that is why we say no. We just can't. We just don't have the manpower. We just don't have the time.
Sure.
So that would be one suggestion that I would have, is just do that pre-work, so that when you go and you say, I have an idea, they're going to be able to visualize it and see how it's actually going to be implemented.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's such a big thing. I mean, just having an idea of how you're going to implement, or at least, or volunteers that are ready to help you out, even if you don't know exactly how it's going to work, saying, hey, I have this idea and me and these 3 people are ready to take it on if you're willing to help us, help the guys and stuff. So someone said good morning on Facebook. Facebook doesn't always show us your face or your name. So if you're on Facebook with us, if you just put your name in parentheses at the end, of the way we can make sure we shout you out there. Come in with procedure and the why. That's from Adam. Right. Appreciate that. Dave says, what if you hear a good idea that isn't focused on your plan? Do you ever say no to good ideas? Ooh, good question, Dave. Do you?
Yeah. Well, that's one of the benefits of being an assistant principal is, sometimes you can pass the buck there a little bit. But, I'm trying to think of a specific example where maybe that happened. I'm sure there are many. I try to be super approachable. And so one of the jokes that I have is when school was in session and I, sometimes need to go to a classroom or go to the bathroom, I need to budget some time because I'm going to run into 10 people along the way that they all want to tell me their idea.
Yeah.
And usually those conversations are, okay, think that through a little bit more. So I rarely do I ever just say no,
sure,
that can't happen, good idea, but no. Usually I think that through a little bit.
Yeah, well, you said sometimes when you say no, it's because you just, you're not able to handle it. So you might have a great idea, but there's just no capacity to make it happen. So maybe it's a no, but more of a not yet, let's think through, like you talked about. Like I like that it's not necessarily ever a no. It's a let's think through that, and the let's think through that might be this is a great idea, but
And I also think that
these 3 things need to happen first, or whatever. So
right, yeah. And I also think that by now the teachers in our building, I'm very open about my views about what school should be about. We exist for kids. Everything we do is student centered. If it's not going to have an impact on a student, we might have to think that through a little bit. Not saying that we shouldn't support teachers, absolutely. Sure. And we do a lot of things to support teachers so that they can then support students. But I think by now a lot of the teachers kind of know where I'm at and where Mr. Benty, our building principal, is at, and so they understand our vision. And so the ideas that they are bringing are usually tied to that vision and wanting to advance it. And I think that that's a big part of leadership is your people got to know sort of where you're at and what you're about. And if they don't, you need to spend a little bit of time working through that. And maybe that's one of the reasons why we're more apt to say yes, is because people already know what direction we're going and what ideas could help us achieve those means.
Yeah, they've got to know what the vision is for the school and what's important and what values are supposed to be there, so that then when they're coming to you, they're more aligned because they're already thinking through some of those questions, right? So I think it's a big thing. Alex says sometimes you got to squat down to chat one-on-one. Sometimes you got to squat up to work together. I like the hashtag squat down, squat up. Dave says, Sean, you are the AP I wish I was. So Dave's now in the assistant superintendent role, but that's a huge compliment coming from Dave. I don't know if you know Dave Schmittou or not, Sean, but you should definitely connect with him. Dave, make sure you follow him on Twitter. Get you guys connected. Dave and I, we were live yesterday afternoon and everything. We've been doing the last 2 weeks. Well, we've been doing it for a while, but we started streaming live the last 2 weeks, just getting some virtual cocktails together and talking nonsense. So yesterday's talk went all crazy into running and dancing and ice. I think we were talking about figure skating and gymnastics at one point. Andrew was on there. So Dave's a good guy. So that is definitely a huge compliment there.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. Thank you for that.
Andrea says I hear no a lot with no follow-up discussion. I like how you handle it. Andrea's looking for a job with you. So no,
we got jobs open.
Andrea, I don't know. It's not that far from the Chicagoland area over there.
Looking for great people always.
So let's talk through that. So not through that. We don't want to get into that. But so with all the changes, so you guys, when did Minnesota? When did you close down K-12? Was it right there that second, third week of March?
Yeah. So actually,
early on,
we at our high school in our district, we had a very early spring break this year, and I'm not exactly sure why, but we left for spring break on whatever that Friday was, the first Friday, like March 9th or something, like before all this happened. Mm-hmm. And I have just the most vivid memory. It was a beautiful March day in southeastern Minnesota. We fell for it again. We thought that spring had arrived in early March, and of course it didn't. It was just one random beautiful day. But we all knew we were going to get a week off. And I'll just speak for myself. I was so excited to get the heck out of that building. Yeah, I needed a break. I was exhausted. We had just implemented a very big initiative, moving our schedule around, and that required a lot of logistical legwork and thinking and just managing that big change. And I was a little bit worn out. So I distinctly remember getting in my car and thinking, thank God I'm leaving this place right now. And if I would have had any idea that the whole world would be flipped upside down in just a few days after that, and that we would never go back. So a lot of schools had the benefit of knowing that this was coming, mm-hmm. telling their kids that they love them, coming up with some plans for distance learning, distribution of materials. We were on break when school shut down. So we had no contact. We had no ability to come together until after the fact. And it made it really hard logistically, but more so, we just that closure that, when we think about this time of year and being able to say goodbye to your seniors and honor them and just tell your kids, man, I really loved having you in class and I learned so much from you, and just all those things that all teachers do every year with every class. We just never got a chance to do that in a really meaningful way. And it just really feels like something has been missed. There's this void that we're all just forced to kind of navigate through. So when we did come back from break, we were super focused on, what this is going to look like, and teams of adults and man, just some of the most honest and frank. I mean, we didn't have time for semantics, and we didn't have time for, getting into the weeds. We were just all business. What is this going to look like? And one of the things I'm super proud of from our district is that we were hyper focused on making sure that we were being as equitable as possible. How do we make sure that our students who rely on the food that the school provides, that the only meals they get are their breakfast and lunch at school every day? How do we make sure that them and their families can eat? Yeah. And we devised a big plan where school buses every day, even today, are dropping off meals in our neighborhoods, and came up with a system there. How do we make sure everyone has a device, has a hotspot, has access to mental health, to chemical health supports? And it was only after all of those things got sort of handled that we said, okay, how do we now create world-class education opportunities for our students and make sure that they're continuing to learn? Because we know that if those basic needs aren't being met, it doesn't matter how engaging or how thoughtful your lesson are. Nobody's going to learn a darn thing if they're hungry or if they're struggling with anxiety or whatever. So we did a good job of putting first things first. And I think that our educational, our learning outcomes were better because of it.
Yeah, I agree. Holly said I wish I had an advanced knowledge of the closure. We found out Sunday on 5/15 at 4 the close was going to be closed. Yeah, it was interesting. I'm in Ohio, and Ohio was the first to close K-12. For I can't remember what the original plan was for how long, but it's going to be at least like 2 to 3 weeks. And so our teachers, that happened on like a Monday, Tuesday. So they had a couple of days, and they used that Friday to send home as much stuff as they could. And then things started the following week. But I remember it was still that following week. So that must have been the week that you were then on vacation, on spring break, because it wasn't until the following Friday that I was actually on my way to Chicago with Chad and one of our teammates. We were driving six and a half hours to Chicago we were actually supposed to be meeting with the whole team and stuff like that. And on our way out, we were listening to news and stuff, and it was just like every hour it seemed like 2 more states have closed, another state. It was just crazy, like how much it changed just across 24, 36 hours right there. So many teachers that in the same spot didn't have this opportunity to say, and even like, even the teachers like in our area that we were, like I said, first state to do it, but they didn't realize, they were thinking it was going to be the week before spring break, and then we had spring break, maybe a week after, and then we're going to be back. And that didn't happen. Right. It's just,
we all thought that,
it's really tough. So, so what have you guys done to try and replicate that the best way you can? How are you handling, are you still in session? Are you done now? Where are you guys at with that? And what are you doing as far as trying to continue those connections at the classroom level with teachers and stuff?
So how do we do education once those basic needs are met? What we did, and we're still in session. We go until June 4th. Our seniors are done tomorrow, Friday, but everybody else continues on for the rest of the year. And we made a decision because we're in a high poverty situation. A lot of our students have become essential workers. A lot of our students are ones that, you have multiple kids in the home that are sharing a single device. What we decided was to be as asynchronous as possible, that teachers would roll out content with very, very loose deadlines and things like that, and give kids ample time to do it when they could do it. So there's been a lot of direct instruction through videos that students can access at any point in time. I was fortunate enough, we all kind of squatted up, and I was working with our 9 through 12 language arts department and our 9 through 12 math department. So I was involved in all of those meetings, and right down to lesson plan and how are you going to gather feedback, and how are you going to grade and assess when you can't do a written math test in class. How are you going to be able to have that student show understanding? And those conversations that teachers were having early on in this process were just some of the best I've ever been involved in, because we were just hyper focused on all of these things that honestly we maybe should have been focused on before, but just wouldn't. How do we assess kids that have different strengths and have different capabilities? How do we deliver content to students based on what they can do and what they have access to? And it was really through those conversations that I think we changed our mindset about how school should be done at all. And I want to give every teacher watching this right now just the loudest shout out that I possibly can, because the work that went into this was huge. I mean, literally redesign what education looks like in a matter of days. And of course, teachers did that and deserve a ton of praise. But what a lot of people forget is what you mentioned, the fear and the anxiety of watching this news scroll through. Oh my goodness, another state shut down. Oh my goodness, they just canceled the NCAA basketball tournament. Oh my gosh, they just sent everybody home from MLB spring training. That was scary. I was scared for me. It was
like a movie, like an apocalypse movie. It was just crazy. Like, listen, it was nuts.
Right. And then when you're at your peak of fear, redesign education. Go do it now. And teachers did. And it just is, I am just so filled with pride, and I get a little emotional, honestly, when I just think about the fact that teachers put those fears aside because their students were depending on them at that point in time. And they just do what students or teachers always do, which is put their students first. But in that moment, what they did, I think, is just so admirable and deserves to be recognized.
Absolutely, 100% agree. So are you now, and as your admin team, are you are you guys in a point where you're starting to look more, okay, what does August, September, October look like? What are we preparing for? Are you there yet? And I ask you that way because we have a lot of conversations with school leaders and admins, and it seems like the majority are getting there, but there are still some that just aren't quite there yet, because they're still trying to figure out some of these other little things not little things, but these other logistical things and stuff for the end of the year type stuff. Are you guys there yet? Have you figured out, okay, we've got this figured out, how our year is going to end, how we're wrapping things up, what summer is going to be like? But are you now talking about, okay, what's going to look like in August depending on XYZ, which we don't know yet? Are you guys there? Where's your mind at? Where's your planning process at right now?
So our planning process, and we've had this question a lot from our teachers. Obviously, they want to know. They're already looking ahead too, and they want to know, of course, and they look to us for guidance. And so what we're telling them is you can go a couple different ways. You can either take every single standard and every single lesson and break it down so that you can teach it three ways. You can teach it in person, you can teach it distance learning, or you can teach it in some sort of hybrid. I mean, it's going to look in some combination of those three things, right? You can create 3 lessons, or you can create 1 lesson that can be adapted in each of those 3 different ways. And when you say it like that, it's like, well, obviously I'm going to create 1 lesson as opposed to 3. And so I have no idea what things will look like. I have my guesses, like everybody else. I have my views and whatever, and think I think we should do this or whatever. But I'm not in charge. Nobody's asking me what I think we should do. And so the best advice that I can give to teachers is save yourself some of the mental anguish and physical anguish, and try your best to create lessons that, if we are in distance learning, you don't have to redesign everything again for the fall semester. You're going to do that work over the summer or whenever during curriculum writing time, and then it can be adapted to whatever school looks like. And so much of what we do is based on, we have a framework, and what we tell teachers is this is what we want to see. When I walk into a classroom, it's so hard to tell like what a teacher's doing and all these things. But if I see kids talking, I see them writing, I see them reading, I see them moving, and I see them feeling cared for by the teacher and by each other. If I see those 5 things, I'm leaving that classroom happy, period. You know, there's obviously some teaching is more complex than that. But if I see those 5 things, reading, writing, talking, moving, and feeling cared for, that's all I can ask for. So how do we embed those in any of those 3 different ways? If you can do that, we're good.
I love that approach too, because that's something we actually talk with admins all the time. So, you know, one of the things that we do as a Teach Better team is we work a lot with, that's what we do, is we work with districts on rolling out initiatives, training, you know, giving opportunities to be better. And the one thing that we always try to stress is like, hey, we're not coming in and tell you like, this is how you have to do things. And you should never walk into your teacher's classroom and say, you have to do the grid method because Teach Better's here, right? It's never that. It's, let's make sure everyone in your school and your district knows these are the 5 things or 6 things or whatever the number of things are that we want to see happen in the classrooms. These things being met, right? And if you can do that, it doesn't really matter how you're doing it, as long as you're doing it. And then what we like to be is, hey, if you're not doing that, here's a tool that might work for you. That's how we've always tried to be as a Teach Better team, which is why it's Teach Better and not Teach This Way. Right? We don't want to tell you that because you're probably already teaching pretty awesome. We just want to, maybe we have here's an idea that might help you teach better. So we like to, and I think the way you're looking at the fall is the right way to do it. I think we have there's sort of 4 scenarios you got to plan for, right? Are we back physically but with social distancing? Are we in some sort of blended hybrid model? Are we 100% virtual? Or honestly, what's potentially really going to be likely is potentially that we're going to be intermittent, where we either start off virtual, then we're back in, but then we might go back to virtual. Right? We're potentially going to see these spikes come and go with COVID in the fall. Or are we hybrid, but then we get to come back for a little bit? Or do we start back, but then we have to come back out? So I think the way you're looking at it is absolutely the way it has to be, because the way I've been saying that is, hey, there's your 4 scenarios. If you plan for 100% virtual, it's a lot easier to adapt to everything else. It's a lot easier to adapt from virtual to physical, because I can go, okay, everything was being delivered virtually. So now instead of this video, I'm going to deliver it as we're going to do a whole group thing. Or instead of this site, we're going to do a worksheet, or we're going to do this experiment in person. It's a lot easier to do it that way than planning for physical and then having to shift. So I think if you plan that way, you knock, like you said, you check all 3 of those boxes and you're ready to go. So
exactly. That's smart.
Dave says, I think the speed in which the change happened was actually a blessing. Seeing the uncertainty lingering about the fall is causing increased anxiety. March was like a Band-Aid getting ripped off. Right now, it's like a slow burn. Yeah, and I think the catch and where a lot of people are, and trying to let me know if I'm on point here or not, is that for a while, you know, since all this happened, since March, you know, I say that like it was so long ago, right? For the last couple months, it's kind of been like, and not in a bad way in any way, shape, or form, but been sort of like, as long as you're focusing on the child and doing something and engaging in some way, communicating, like it's good. We're okay. We're not worrying about even really assessing all that much. We're not even, we're just worrying about giving opportunities. But we do have to shift it back now to, okay, but how are we going to actually be assessing them and give them the feedback they need to grow and to learn and stuff? So we have to figure out how do we do that to make sure that they're getting what they need, while still taking care of them the way they need to be taken care of digitally. And we're kind of making this shift. And now we have this time, right? Because we're like settled in right now. And like Dave said, it's kind of that slow burn. It's like, it's no longer like, let's just make sure we're taking care of these things really quick. But now it's like, okay, we've taken care of all of that. Now we have to, like, how do we also, like you said earlier, like, how do we also now provide world-class education too? And now we have all this time to kind of think about it, and we don't know what it's going to look like. And it is, the anxiety, I think, is tough there. So wanted to say good morning to Eric, guys. Eric jumping in. And then Sunita, nice to see you as well. Good morning, Teach Better team. We're coming in from India. India's in the house. Love seeing our friends from India in here. So Dave also says, for me, the struggle is trying to stay in my lane. I can't worry about hand dryers, toilet seat covers, bus capacity, etc. There's so much uncertainty. I need to focus on that which I can control and everything. So, and
you bring up sorry to interrupt, Jeff.
No, interrupt me. I don't know what I was doing anyway. That's why I just stopped.
The logistics, right? How do we get kids to sanitize their hands when they walk in, and how do you social distance appropriately? Like that obviously is what a lot of people are thinking about. But I also would encourage everybody out there to have a social and emotional learning plan in place, because people have undergone trauma, and some more significantly than others. But we cannot assume that students are going to be excited to enter back into the building. Mm-hmm. I've heard that a lot. Kids are going to be excited to enter back because they miss their friends and everything. And there may be some truth to that. But I also think that people have gone through a lot. People have lost their jobs. People have had family members get sick or die from this awful virus. Like, people have really been filled with fear and anxiety, and schools are going to have to be able to have plans in place to meet that need, as well as just kind of combating the physical germs that we know we need to combat. So as if schools needed one more thing to worry about, I think that needs to be almost at the forefront of what we plan for next year.
That's a huge piece. Yeah. And when you're thinking through those different scenarios that you have to plan for, like, that's got to be a piece of that.
Gotta be.
And honestly, I mean, that's also got to be something that should be always on the list no matter what, but even more so right now. It's really heightened by this. And also, I'll second on that. Like, it's your kids coming back might not be excited to come back, but honestly, some of your teachers might not be either. They're going through this trauma too. They're dealing with it. They may still be anxious about the world and the safety. Just because the state or the federal government says it's safe doesn't mean that everyone's going to feel safe, right? So they may not be okay. The community might not be okay with reopening or sending their kids in, but they might have to or whatever. So there's so much of that. I think there's got to be that a lot of communication, talking to everyone, and that, like you said, that SEL plan of how do we make sure that students, teachers, the faculty, admins, the community, everyone is talking, that we're here for them, that they know that we care about them, that we're thinking about it. So yeah, that's crucially important. So definitely going to be, like Adam says, SEL is going to be essential and need programs for all within the community. Absolutely agree. Hey, I haven't said this yet. If you're listening on Teach Better Talk, this was obviously pre-recorded, but make sure you give us a subscribe, rate, and review would be awesome. But then also go follow Sean Peck. It's at Sean Peck 6, the number 6 at the end there. But then if you are listening on the Teach Better Talk, the best way to get in here and interact is to get in the group. So you should come and get in the group. Actually, tomorrow, Friday, is our last daily drop-in. We're actually wrapping up this for I guess forever. I don't know. We'll figure it out. So tomorrow is our last drop-in. So hopefully you'll join us then. But the nice thing about these drop-ins, you can go watch the videos in our group at any time. They're all saved there. They're all saved on the YouTube channel. They're all put up on the podcast as audio form as well. So super cool there. Love to see everyone jumping in on different ways. We've got people watching from all over right now. So let me ask you, let's go. We're going to step off let's talk about Sean Peck personal here. So what are you doing? Let me ask you, like, so with the school closing and more of the shutdowns, what aspects of your personal life, the things that you like doing, what aspects of that were kind of like cut off or taken away, and how are you adjusting to quarantine life? Are you, like, I don't know, did you like to go out and play sports? Did you run? Did you like to go to certain activities that you can't do now? where are you at like that? How's your family? Like, how's everyone dealing with this quarantine portion of this? It's one thing, all the stuff you have to deal with as a principal, but now also as a human. Where are you at there? How you doing?
Yeah.
It really should have been my first question. I should have shown that I cared, but whatever. We're here now.
We got to it, right? No. So I guess I'll answer it like this. I'm super blessed, very privileged. I got a fridge full of food. I have 3 wonderful children, a second grader, a kindergartner, and a 3-year-old.
Wow.
Got a great job. My wife, multiple college degrees. Like, we got it all. We got it all. We got everything we need. Strong Wi-Fi signal. We got it all. Mm-hmm. And it still is really, really hard. When we're trying to be, we got jobs and we need to do our jobs and provide leadership for our school and our teachers. And then I also got to be kind of a second grade teacher and a kindergarten teacher. And then we got
second grade kindergarten. I feel you.
Yeah. And then we got the 3-year-old who, I'm a little bit surprised he hasn't made an appearance so far. So
we may have to stop and have him make an appearance.
Yeah,
we make that happen.
Yeah, we might have to. But no, it's been wonderful to be around my family more. I mean, certainly I work long hours when life is a little more normal, and so just being home for every meal and being around. But also, I think it's added a little bit of perspective of what a lot of our families are going through. Because there's certain times when I'm in a staff meeting or department meeting, and I got to go. I got a screaming child, or I just can't do this right now. And I think that if I'm asking my team for that level of grace, of I have to be able to put my family first right now, and everyone understands that, everybody gets it, and I think that we also have to do the same thing for our teachers, for our parents, for our kids. Everybody's fighting tough fights.
Yeah.
And I'm fighting tough fights within, my own home. And like I said, when I started, I'm more fortunate than anybody. Mm-hmm. I mean, who's got it better than us? Nobody. And we're still fighting hard. So you mentioned you had a second grader in kindergarten. Is that your experience too? Or are you?
Yeah, it's been an interesting one for me because, I've worked for myself and worked at home for the last decade. So, I mean, there was a period in there where I had an office as well, but I've always worked, at home. So I'm pretty good at that. But I like what I talk about is one of the things I think that allows me to work well at home is that I'm pretty good at, as soon as I wake up, I know whether I need to go somewhere. Like, I'll wake up and be like, all right, I gotta go work at a coffee shop or go to Panera or something today because I can just feel it. But now I can't do that. So it's kind of this, I've worked for myself for so long, but it was always a choice. Now it's like, I have to work at home, which has been a weird mental thing for me that shouldn't be. Also been interesting, a lot of neighbors and friends and family that I talk to who, with the shift to remote, like either they are taking like sort of a leave of absence from the job, or the job just became a little, I don't want to necessarily say easier, but flexible, where they just have to check in every now and then or whatever. And they're like, oh, I'm doing this home project, I'm doing this, that, whatever. And I'm going, I think I'm working harder than I ever have. Like,
no doubt about it.
Than we ever done right now. We're trying to support all of our schools. We're flipping everything to virtual. We're working with all of our partner schools on how do we continue to support you, but virtually now, because normally we're in schools. That's like one of our biggest things, that we go in all the time. And so all this stuff, it's just been an interesting flip for me. The kids have handled it well. My wife's still essential, so she still works. So there's like I said, like just like you said, like we're extremely fortunate. We still have both incomes. We have Wi-Fi. We've got multiple devices. We didn't have to get a device from the school. We're in such a good spot, but it's still really difficult. And it makes you think, what if someone just didn't even have one of those things that we have? Right? I mean, the thought right now of being a single parent is just like heroes. Yeah. I mean, that's tough. Any given day, I always think, I'm like, holy cow. But like, in this situation, especially if you're trying to work and dealing with all that stuff, for me, luckily I do have a flexible schedule anyway. Normally I have a lot of control over my schedule. Some might even say I'm the boss.
Yeah,
Ray would disagree. But like, I don't have to worry about getting yelled at for if I got to step off with my kids and stuff like that. And so it really is, but it's still difficult. Right. And so then you think about, like you said, that empathy for someone who doesn't have as many fortunes as you have. It's really tough. But overall, we've been doing pretty good. We've been good. Kids are doing well at the school. Their teachers have done a great job adjusting and shifting to the online stuff. And I got to watch my son do they were on there for like over an hour Google Meet with his classroom and stuff, which was hilarious. 'Cause, you know, my son's in second grade, but he's basically a teenager the way he acts. Somebody off.
I know the feeling.
I'm trying to get him set up. He's like, Dad, I'm hungry. I don't want to do this. I'm like, you can eat and be on camera. It's fine. He's like, and as soon as he gets on and all his friends, he just lights up again, and he's just talking and laughing, and I'm like, it's just so it's fun. It's entertaining. I don't have the additional 3-year-old run around. That's where
it adds an extra layer.
It sure does. That's phenomenal. So all right, so we're about 10 till an hour, so I'm going to let you get to your work. But I really appreciate you coming on. This was great. I could tell by all the comments, everything, a lot of value shared, which is what we're trying to do here. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Everyone who's watching, listening, commenting, just so you know, Sean and I are figuring out he is going to come on Teach Better Talk, so we're going to get to dive into his story a little more and stuff too. So I don't know when that'll come out or whatever, but I'm making it publicly known now, so he has to sign up and get on the podcast.
Now I'm obligated.
Okay, but make sure you follow Sean, get connected with him, and continue this conversation with him. Appreciate all of you. I will be back live tonight after the Mastery Chat. So hopefully you'll join us tonight, 8:00 Eastern Time on Mastery Chat over on Twitter, and then also come back on any of these platforms. So I'm going to stream everywhere again to chat. We've got the crew from School Status coming on. The whole team's running the chat, and I think we got a couple of them coming live as well. And then I will be here live tomorrow morning for our very last daily drop-in. It is going to be myself and Ray Hewart and Hans Apple coming on, and we're going to be talking about Hans's new book that drops tomorrow morning, Award-Winning Culture. We're going to be announcing the 5 people that are winning 5 copies of his book. We're going to be digging in. We're going to try and get him to give away a whole bunch of secrets from the book. And we're going to talk, and it's going to be our last one. So hopefully you join us tomorrow and we can make a big hoopla out of it and everything. So it was great seeing everyone this morning. Sean, truly, truly, truly appreciate you, man. And everyone have an amazing Thursday, and we'll see you tonight and see you tomorrow morning.